So yeah, Tyler, thank you so much for sitting down with me. It'll be a quick chat. You are the first interview slash probably installment of this new series called the In the Thick of It, where we're gonna kind of make a little more highlight mental health awareness, and the struggles that they can bring, and see if we can just have a conversation about it, and hopefully people that listen to it get some help out of it or some perception, stuff like that. So, I believe we were going to be talking about bipolar and OCD. Those are a lot of the themes that you talk about in your music with notation.
Uh, yeah, typically.
Okay, so we will start. We'll start with bipolar. What is bipolar?
So I guess bipolar disorder is a swing in like a really rapid swing in moods, from either very depressed to like the highest point would be like feeling like Superman or like you could run through a wall or pretty much do anything. You know what I mean? There is no middle of the road, and things affect you very easily. Like your emotions become affected very easily by either words or actions. Pretty much just like daily life can cause just the biggest issues at times, even.
Sure. Would you consider those like triggers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What kind of are there triggers that are kind of set across the board, or is it like a sensory thing? Like how exactly, what kind of triggers do you normally see with bipolar? You said it was like everyday stuff.
I think the triggers vary from person to person. But I know for me, like a lot of triggers, mine, I also have OCD, so they
Yeah.
like tie together for me. So if things are out of place, or if I have like a certain idea in my head, say for like a song, for example, just since we're talking about music, um, I get fixated on that idea and I'm really not able to focus on anything else all day long. And I can kind of only really do that task, which just really gets in the way when I'm at work. My emotions can be very triggered if things are out of place at home or if things are very dirty, if there's dishes in the sink. If one of the cats is like meowing just a little too loud or something, like it's very triggering for me and hard to control that.
Sure. Um, when do you start to realize that your triggers are kind of setting themselves in motion? Do you ever kind of foresee it happening, or is it more you run into it as it's kind of starting?
I can sort of tell that my mood is going to shift just like based off of the feeling that I get inside. If I wake up that morning and I'm like already immediately depressed, I'm like, oh, I'm starting to like go into either depressed mode or I'm going to be like very high by the end of the day and manic. Uh, and so I guess like it's just knowing what to watch for in your body. So for me, it's those things like waking up in the morning. If it becomes like a task or is very difficult, I know that like something is off in my day, and I'm either gonna go like below the line or above the line.
Okay. So it's kind of like learning about understanding your triggers and how your body kind of is reacting to them or is going to
Yeah,
react to them.
yeah, and a lot of stuff can carry over from the previous day or even the previous week. It just depends how much how fixated you become thought
Hmm.
like on those thoughts.
How long do you think it takes for your when you kind of feel it happening to when it just kind of hits you?
I have bipolar 2 disorder, so it's a much longer period of time that I stay in these mood swings, so it's not as rapid as a shift.
All right.
Whereas with bipolar 1, it's like it could be within the hour their mood might shift. You know what I mean?
So it's a little more sudden?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So for me, it happens gradually over time, and I guess like I'll notice it at the beginning of a week, and I sort of try to just like start thinking of the things that I can do to circumvent, say, that spiral downward or becoming too manic. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna become depressed, like, and I can tell that like I'm heading that way, I try to go for walks, try to work out, try to work on music. Things that I know are going to help me be more active and become stimulated and just get my mind going with ideas so I'm not stuck
Sure.
in that like constant depressive thought space. And if I'm going to be manic, then I just know like maybe take a nap, just hang out, eat some food, watch a movie, turn the lights down, try to do something that's going to relax myself, maybe stay inside for the day, play
Mm.
some Xbox,
Hey,
just basic things, you know?
it's good to have those those kinds of distractions because I myself I have depression, anxiety, and when I would go through my more serious depressive episodes, I can kind of feel it happening.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I had the choice of kind of sitting in it and stewing and letting it spiral, which is what I was kind of doing, and that's no good. But now, instead of lasting a few hours or days, depending on it, it could be 15, 20, half an hour. Like if I get that distraction and just get it out of my head, you can't dwell on it and you can't let it affect you. So it's good that you understand your triggers and when it's happening, and then you have a plan. Like you know kind of what you need to do to shift out of it if you can.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not saying that I'm good at always, implementing those things because sometimes it's tough to remember like, oh,
Yeah,
hey, like you need to get yourself out of bed and doing this in order to get yourself in that type of mood or put yourself in a better headspace. I mean, I think we all get stuck in the trap of like, oh man, I'm feeling down, let me call off work and like just stay in bed for the day sometimes.
just those
But I'm
compulsive
there's
things.
also nothing wrong with that either, a little
Mm,
self-love doesn't hurt.
it's true. I mean, you're fighting a tough battle. I mean, it's still health. It's not necessarily physical health, but mental health.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to take that break. Sometimes you just need to let your body recover, let your mind recover a little bit.
Yeah, I
Hell yeah.
agree completely.
Fuck yeah. So, what's the main difference between like bipolar 1 and 2? You said is bipolar 2 a little more manic?
Uh, Neither of them are a little more manic than the other. Just bipolar 2 takes longer periods of time to shift. Say, so like I would be depressed for like 2 weeks to a month, whereas somebody with bipolar 1, that feeling inside them might only last for like an hour to like that day. And
Mm,
then the next day is going to be completely different, or the next hour could be completely different. For me, no matter what, it's always going to kind of last that longer period unless I start to do those things to circumvent it.
sure. How long have you been with this?
Well, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder about 4 years ago now.
Okay.
But they said that I had probably had it most of my life. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which they said was more than likely a misdiagnosis because they present similar symptoms.
Interesting. Okay. So did you seek out help at all for it, or was it kind of like noticed along the way?
It was something that like I said, I didn't really notice it till my like late 20s that it was something that like really showed up like until the last 4 years. But then once I did really notice it, I did seek out help. Like I went to multiple different therapists till I found the right one for me and stayed with her for a couple years. Got on different medications, of course. That's a nightmare in and of itself, but after trying tons of them, and I mean like every single one out there, I found the right one, luckily,
Good.
uh, and was able to take the time to step backwards on things to work on myself in order to start to go forwards again.
Sure. We talked a lot about bipolar. Why don't we switch quickly over to OCD? Why don't you explain that a tiny bit?
So my understanding on OCD isn't nearly as clear because I don't like it's not my main disorder. It
Okay.
only presents itself with my bipolar disorder. So it's more thoughts and ideas that I get stuck on, or if somebody has said something to me that really upset me, that's going to replay in my head all day. Or if something is out of place in my house all day long, I'm like, and I leave the house, I'm going to know that. And that's going to be like my obsessive thought for the day. Whereas I know there's different forms of OCD that lead people to like constantly counting or having to touch items multiple times. I do experience some of that myself at times. Like I flush the toilet 2 times in a row, always. I don't really
Hmm.
understand why I do that.
It's just
It's kind of
instinctive.
just a habit.
Interesting.
And then in order to calm, like one of the ways that I've calmed myself down is I count backwards from 100 pretty constantly.
Okay.
Um, but my OCD, like I said, more or less presents itself in the constant obsessive thoughts.
Sure.
And that pours into, gosh, everything in my life. Relationships is what it makes the hardest, to be
Oh,
completely honest.
man. How so?
If there's like I have a girlfriend that I live with, but like when I was dating pretty frequently, if there's a girl that I liked, I would just sit at home and like stare at my phone and be like, oh man, are they going to text me? Oh, they must not like me. Like that thought, like just circulating constantly, even if I'm trying to do something else. And even if I'm like, oh wow, this really isn't healthy for me. I know I shouldn't be this way. It might still just be replaying in my mind no matter what I do about it. And I mean, that's just a very small, minuscule example, for lack of better example at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of interpret into almost any moment. It's just like it's a lot of overthinking and just like dreaming up different scenarios in your head that you can get fixated on, and it's just like you can't. It's so hard to grasp sometimes. It's just other people are other people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it, like I said, it might not always be like related to other people. It could just be
Sure.
related to something at work or around my house, or like we've been
Interesting.
having an issue with one of the cats lately, and that's been setting my OCD off pretty frequently because it's been getting sick around the house, which
Oh man.
then I'm like constantly, one of us is cleaning it up, and I'm like, oh my God, this can't be happening. This is a lease, and this is probably going to mess up my lease agreement, kind of thing. And like, that's always in the back of my mind to the point where it's affecting my daily day and my attitude about my day.
Yeah, okay.
Like, so I guess that's probably a better example to
Sure.
use.
Yeah, so how do you get yourself out of those situations usually, like with the mental?
The OCD is a lot tougher to overcome when it's like the constant obsessive thoughts about something like that. I find getting myself away or out of the environment that I'm feeling that way in allows me to remove my mindset from that.
Okay. So it's almost like a physical thing, just kind of out of sight, out of mind type deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Excellent. So we have a few more minutes. Like I said, it's a quick one. We're trying not to make it
Cool.
super duper long, but you kind of incorporate these ideas and themes into your music with no takebacks. Why don't you just talk a little bit about that? Well,
Yeah, so a lot with the bipolar disorder and OCD in a lot of our songs. I mean, you can hear it in the themes throughout. Like our song "Reflections" is just about my constant obsessive thought of my ex fiance, even from like 7 years ago, and just the mistakes that I've made in that, or the bipolar thoughts related to that of, oh man, I really did this wrong, but wait, she did this wrong, kind of thing. It's
mm,
just really the dichotomy between everything that I'm constantly writing about. And it's become like a therapeutic release to put all those different thoughts into songs. You'll hear it a lot more in any of the stuff that we're currently putting out. We have a couple songs coming out, like "To Be a Ghost," which has very happy themes in the song as well, but it's about one of my family members dying. So there are points where it's very depressive. And I feel like you get that out of the sound as well in general. It's more of like a therapeutic thing for me to write about those thoughts that are circulating in my brain, whether they're related to the bipolar or OCD. It's not specific to that, but more or less themes of that.
okay. And it's good that you have that outlet. And like you said, it's therapeutic. And coming from the other end, I don't create music necessarily, but I listen to music, definitely. And that's a therapy in its own. So, I mean, if you can take it from one end of the spectrum and then throw it to the people that are interpreting it, I mean, who knows how many people suffer from the same struggles or might not even realize it and like they're looking for answers. So, I mean, to use that outlet yourself to then have someone interpret it is just so interesting to me. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And like, well, actually, I started thinking also that there are like a lot of self-deprecating themes, I guess, in some of my songs where like it's talking about how like I don't feel good enough, or I don't know if anyone's hearing me, or are you even listening to me, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And that all refers back into like the more depressive moments of me dealing with my bipolar disorder, because there's moments where like it can become very serious for people in dark, where even if they are surrounded by people and do have love and support, they might not necessarily see it themselves. Like it can become a very distorted self view, world view. It's very tough to encompass what all it can affect, because it can truly
Okay.
just affect your entire life in that manner.
Yes, it
And
can.
I think that like those themes show up a lot in the songs if you listen to the lyrics, and how they're truly very depressing most of the time is what a lot of people tell me, but the songs themselves sound very happy, which I guess is a good representation of that with inside myself.
That's good. I mean, like you said, it's so tough to realize you have that love and support around you. It's just like it's your brain, it's your mind attacking you. I had a huge dynamic shift this year. I had a broken engagement that was ultimately
Oh
because of
damn.
mental health struggles, and I'm getting through it, and I'm looking for different ways to cope, and I've gotten better. But it's so important to realize, like, even if you're in that funk, there are still people that do care about you and love you, even if you don't necessarily believe it. But and that's not you necessarily. That's just the bad parts of your brain trying to convince you otherwise, and you just gotta fight through it as much as you can.
Exactly. I know we're trying to be short here, so I just one last
Yeah.
quick little thing. Jonah Hill had like a documentary on Netflix for a
Okay.
little while
Yeah,
about mental
that's
health.
right. Yes.
The best way that he put it is there's this X Factor version of you that lives in your brain that's constantly telling you lies.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to at some point make a decision not to listen to that
Mm.
and constantly tell yourself the opposite. It's a, we're taught to think a certain way. And I feel like that's what sets off the triggers inside of ourselves once we're getting older to have these mental disorders
Mm.
appear at random times. And I think it's important to speak kind and like teach yourself differently, like mentally, and how you talk to yourself in order to combat that and even avoid dealing with some of that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you gotta love yourself, treat yourself. Mental health is just important as physical health.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and it's okay to get help and request help when you need it. I mean, you see everybody, like if you post on social media, someone's not doing too well, you get a million comments like, reach out if you want to, like, I'm here for you. And then a lot of the time, and me specifically, like, I don't really reach out to those people, even though I had that invitation right there. But if it's the other way around, I would desperately want that person to reach out to me. I want to be like to help them. So it's like you got to realize you can be that version of yourself towards other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
Hell yeah. Dude, what a talk. 20 minutes. We talked about some good stuff, bipolar, OCD. I learned a lot. I think like if I ever see these kind of things happening to myself, I have a better understanding of it and I feel more comfortable being able to help myself. And I really hope that anybody listening to this has the same thing. I mean, we all go through it. We're all not alone.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's tough to deal with for sure.
Definitely. Well, Tyler, I very much appreciate you coming on and talking with me. These are some deep conversations. I know sometimes it can't be comfortable, especially with strangers, but I appreciate you opening up to me and sharing some of your story. And I'm truly proud that you're getting through it and you're finding help. And I think I saw your girlfriend and the cat run away. So make sure you say
Yeah.
hi to them. Extra hi to the cat. And if you need anything, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm here for you, my guy.
Of course, man. I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you so
Hell
much for
yeah.
the opportunity.
Of course. Have a good one.